Scott and Patty Pingle from Mineral Point, Missouri, flew this airplane in, and both of you come up here and join me up here. Come on, Patty. Scott, you're from a long history. Your family has a long history in flying, and your brothers and sisters and everybody, the whole family flies. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we're going to talk about your airplane.
Good morning, everybody. I'm originally from Farmington, Missouri, and my dad has been in aviation all his life. He was a World War II B-17 pilot and also flew the Korean War, flying Douglas A-26 Invaders. And after that, he was in the crop dusting business, and then finally opened the Farmington, Missouri airport when it was brand new in 1962. That's the same year I was born, by the way. My first airplane ride was when I was 2 weeks old, is the way I understand it, and I've been flying ever since. I worked at the airport mowing grass and pumping gas as a kid, and on my 16th birthday I soloed and got my private license on my 17th birthday, and everything else from there. I was a charter pilot for my father for many years, flying round engine and tail wheel airplanes. We had Beech 18 and finally a DC-3, and that's where I fell in love with tail wheels and round engines. My dad had a 195 and back in the early 50s. I think it was around 1952 or 53, something like that. And growing up, I looked at pictures of the airplane, and I just loved it, and I just vowed that someday I will own a 195, and I was fortunate enough to have it.
And today, you're a captain for Southwest.
That is correct.
You're flying with the airplane?
Boeing 737, and I've been with Southwest Airlines for about 14 years.
Your sister, Karen, I know she's very proud, and I know, Karen, you flew your little brother around when he was a little boy.
I did.
And Scott, we appreciate you bringing this 195 here. Tell us a little bit about the Cessna 195 history and about your airplane.
It goes 195 miles an hour. It says right on the side of the airplane. It burns 19.5 gallons of fuel an hour. No, I'm just kidding.
You've been reading the book tonight. You've been reading the book.
Technically, John Barron, who's sitting in the crowd as a moral support for me, can answer many technical questions about this airplane that I can't answer. The first ones, I believe, were built in 1947. Is that right, John? And the production line ran until 1954. And there was almost 1,200 of the airplanes built, and I believe 600 or so are still flying in the world. Is that correct?
600 registered. There's probably a little shy of 500.
Okay, a little over 600 registered here in the U.S. This particular airplane is the fifth to the last one built as far as the serial numbers go. So, I've had this airplane for a year. Definitely work in progress. It's a good representative of an average 195, I'd say, and it's a lot of fun.
Scott, what are the numbers? I mean, you like to fly at 75, 8,500? What are you seeing?
Well, I give a lot of airplane rides around at 2,000 feet, but on a trip, it seems to do its best up above 6,000 or 7,000 feet. It tends to true out around 165 miles an hour, and I'm seeing 15 to 17 gallons an hour personally on my fuel burn on this one.
Scott, your father was a B-17 pilot, was the influence for the whole family. Wouldn't he be proud today?
Oh, absolutely. He's still alive. He's 89 years old, and he's very proud.
Okay. We appreciate you bringing this airplane up front and sharing it. And anybody that has any questions, you're going to have the airplane open for folks to see today.
Absolutely. And I did invite John Barron. He has a company called Barron Aviation that rebuilds 195s. Any technical questions, he can answer a lot better than
John, you want to come up a second?
John has the TWA.
Why don't you come up and
you have any questions?
Tell us a couple more things about the 195 that Scott might have forgot.
I wear this TWA hat because now when I'm out running around, people will come up and shake my hand and I recognize them. Whereas if I don't wear the hat, guys walk right by me that I used to fly with, and they don't look the same anymore. The 195, I've owned 100 airplanes maybe in my life. All the popular ones at one time or another. And I like the 195 best. And the reason is, it's fast, it's comfortable, it's roomy, and when I go somewhere and I come back a year later, they know my name, they remember me, and they've been talking about the airplane for a year. I used to have a beautiful Bonanza, and I'd go someplace, and when I left, 20 minutes later, they never remembered I was even there. So this is why I really like the airplanes, and it does a really nice job. It'll do anything and everything that a 180, 185 will do, except one thing. It will not get in and out of the really short strips like the 180, 185. But it's faster than a 185. It hauls the same load, it burns the same fuel. I'm burning 13.7 in cruise, I'm flight planning 14, and I'm truing 170 miles an hour with full tanks and all my camping gear for Oshkosh and my brother on board. And we coming up here to Saturday, we were truing like I always do, 170 miles an hour. Now I crowd them real hard, and I do so to keep the lead burned out of the rings and valves and so forth. So especially if I'm running on avgas, I try to run 75% power if I can. And it keeps them cleaned out. The Jake engine has gone through a renaissance recently. Pete Jones at Air Repair has taken this engine and done a bunch of mods to the engine. And we're now seeing oil consumptions of a quart in 6 hours to a quart in 10 hours, which is unheard of. And they don't drip on the ground hardly. It's a wonderful engine, is what he's done, and they're reliable. He has a 200-year supply of parts for the Jake, so they're everywhere. And the support for the Jacobs, for the 195 is wonderful. Ourselves, Barron Aviation, Bill Milton, the Cessna 195 factory, and John Collette at Butterfly Aviation. Between us, we make, I believe, everything that a guy can want for the engine, for the airframe that you need, except landing gear, and that's probably something we'll be making soon. So all these parts, we make all the ribs, all the skins. The only thing that's not being produced yet, because we haven't had to, are the inboard spars, castings. But everything else, it makes the airplane very usable in today's market. You'll try one, you'll like it. If you get one that's set up properly and the gear is in alignment, they are not the horrible airplane to fly that everyone says. If you get one that's been rebuilt in somebody's basement without jigs, they're awful. And they scare me to death. But if you get them in alignment, they're just another tail dragger. Questions?
John, some of them had a crosswind gear.
Crosswind gear is a hoot. They're so much fun. You can land with crosswind gear, and I do it, especially when the wind's blowing. I never tell the guy in the right seat what I'm going to do, and I land with my feet flat on the floor in 30 knots of crosswind. And on short final, I go like this, and I point at my feet, and you can see their eyes get real big like this, and they start looking for something to hang on to. And the airplane will touch down, and whatever your trajectory is what the airplane does. If you land with the wind off your right-hand side, it gets the cowling out of your way. You can see beautifully, and you come in and you hold it off, and you hold it off, and you hold it off, and you drop it on full stall, and it goes right down the middle of the runway like this. It is so slick, but you have to give your feet a real talking to, because they will not behave themselves. They want to get in and help, and that's why I put them on the floor, because if my feet are on the rudders, they got a mind of their own.
I need one of those gears on my little Chief, I'll tell you, that would be great.
It's really slick. It's so much fun, and the guy in the right seat, I've never had him scream, but it's fun.
Well, Scott and John, thank you for sharing this airplane with us. John, thanks for coming up on short notice, and
certainly.
Scott, And both of you be around for a little bit if anybody wants to talk more about Cessna 195.
Good, gladly. I talk about 195s all day long.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Woohoo!